If you ever feel like you're being followed,
drive to your nearest police station or hospital. A quick story from my dearly departed mother that has stuck with me. It was 1980 and she was 25, living on the border of LA and Orange County in a little town named La Habra in Southern California. She was driving home in her '77 white Trans Am after a long managerial shift at Jack in the Box, about 1 a.m. Shortly after leaving the parking lot, she noticed a dark car pull out behind her and stay close behind. After 10 minutes and a few turns later, she realized that they were in fact following her. She could see at least two men up front. My mom is 5'2", was roughly 120 pounds at the time, and was married to a cop. She knew immediately that going home was not an option, as her hubby was on duty. So she did the next best thing. She went to him and his co-workers. Once she turned onto the main street that the PD was located, the car sped up and drove off in a huff. She continued on and met an officer she knew in the parking lot as he was getting out of his personal vehicle. She was told over and over that she did exactly what she was supposed to. They went on to tell her that so many women just go home thinking they'll be safe inside, or try to lose them and end up lost themselves in a new place that they don't know their way around. Driving to a police department or a hospital is enough to deter most bad guys. Be safe out there.
I live on a hill.
I live on a hill. My bedroom window faces the surrounding area, giving me an amazing view, and I really love the privacy of having no close neighbors and a gated driveway. In short, though, I live in a pretty secluded area and am not used to seeing people around. It's a pain to get up here if you don't have a very good reason. I remember it was a Saturday when I woke up to find myself peering through the window. Instead of the normal leaves and sunlight one would expect to see, I saw a man's face. A man's face. He was bald with buggy blue eyes. His face was pale, but had many dark spots and discoloration from the sun. The eerie thing was that even though I was obviously awake, he didn't break eye contact, didn't move an inch, didn't say a word, just continued to watch me like I had never woken up. I remember slowly sitting up in my bed, never breaking gaze, slowly backing out of my room, inch by inch. Even as my feet grazed the shag carpet, he didn't react. He blinked, sure, but his gaze and facial expression stayed immobile. I reached my door, turned, and ran down the tile hall, telling my dad that there's a man outside my window. He walked out before coming in a moment later to reassure me that the man had come to look at a nearby property and had just gotten lost. My urgency probably didn't reach my dad the way I had intended, but sure enough, when I walked back to my room, the man was gone. Whoever the fuck he was, though, I can't say I'm convinced by his story. The property he supposedly sought was a completely empty lot. Window man, let's not meet.
Zombie guy in the woods.
My friends and I used to hang out at a park every evening until dark. For some perspective, this park is on the outskirts of town and surrounded by trees and walking paths. One evening we'd stayed a bit later than usual, goofing off. We kept hearing noises I would describe as some sort of growling dogs coming from the woods. It's very common for people to walk their dogs on the trails, so we didn't think much of it at first. The growling became more vicious and sounded closer than before. Naturally, we decided it was time to go. My husband and I were in the first vehicle to leave. Being in kind of a rush to get away from the noises, we had forgotten to turn on our headlights. We got just outside the gravel parking lot, which leads into more woods before you actually exit the park, when I thought I saw a deer and turned on my headlights, and my heart stopped. Illuminated maybe 3 feet in front of us was a man walking towards us. His clothes appeared to be filthy and ripped, and his skin appeared to have blood on it. The scariest part, however, was not the blood. It was his demeanor. It appeared he may have been dragging one leg. While his walk was slow, his hands were moving up and down frantically as he was clearly talking to himself. It was the type of body language someone would use if they were pacing back and forth, freaking out about something. He never even acknowledged our car. We turned as fast as we could to warn the others, but by the time we all came back through, he was gone. I assume he retreated back into the woods from which he came. Our town is rampant with drug use, so I'm not sure if this was someone cracked out or what. All I know is I'm glad we left when we did. I did call the police and they said they would check it out, but I never heard anything else about it.
I hate public transport.
Not a long story, but certainly creepy enough to suffice. Roll the years back to my mid-teens. I'm on my usual bus route to my friend's house, generally a 20-minute journey. It's early afternoon and I'm minding my own business, huge headphones glued to my ears as I take my seat next to a middle-aged gentleman. A couple of minutes into the journey, things begin to get weird. I'm looking out the window and feel little strokes, prods on my thigh. I ignore it and put it down to just brushing up to the passenger next to me by accident. Soon after, it happens again, but this time my ribs. I look over to the gentleman next to me and he just smiles and immediately looks straight ahead. At this point, I'm slightly disturbed. May I point out I'm also male. I try to ignore it and just turn my music up louder. Then he proceeds to slowly tingle his fingers down my thigh again. As soon as I turn around, he stops and looks straight ahead. At this point, I became pretty agitated and wondered if anyone else was seeing this. I lift my headphone up on one side and ask the guy if he's got a problem. He doesn't acknowledge my question. Frustrated and extremely creeped out, I jump over him and stand at the front of the bus, itching to get off. He stares at me the remainder of the journey. My stop finally arrives and I keep praying this guy doesn't do the same. As I take my first few strides, I feel as if I'm being shadowed. Tentatively looking behind me, I see my new friend in tow, still smiling. At this point, I whip out my cell phone, call my friend, and begin to run my ass around the corner. Whilst on the phone, I tell my friend to meet me in a safe space near his home and that I had no time to explain. After meeting my friend and explaining everything on the way back, things were soon forgotten. Fast forward a few months or so, and the local news had an article about reports of a middle-aged man assaulting young men in the local area whom had not yet been apprehended. I never knew what happened with the guy in the end, but thank God we never met again. In my mid-20s now, and much wiser, I'm always looking out to help others who are visibly in uncomfortable situations on public transport. It takes one person to defuse a potentially horrific situation. Unfortunately, in my experience, most will turn a blind eye instead of taking collective action. Edit. I realize now this is a little longer than first anticipated. I'm also a serial lurker, so my writing skills are not the best.
The Gypsy.
This happened approximately 24 years ago, when I was a mere fetus in my mother's womb. My brother would have been about 1 year at the time. We lived in Portugal back then, and as we're from Denmark, we all have really blonde hair, a rare sight down there. I don't remember all the specifics of what happened, as it's a while ago my mom told the story. Basically, my mom, dad, and 3 siblings were at an outdoor market looking around, my brother being in a stroller. As markets tend to be quite crowded and young children tend to run around, my parents were trying their best to keep my older sisters in control, age 5 and 8. At one point, when looking down in the stroller, my brother was suddenly gone. As you might know, 1-year-old babies are not supposed to jump and run out of a stroller. This, of course, caused my parents to panic, but luckily my dad caught a glimpse of a lady running away in the distance. He ran after her and saw her holding my brother. She apparently thought he was lost and was trying to find the parents, which is a load of bullshit. It was quite clear that she was a gypsy having God knows what plans for him. Looking back at it, it is so strange to think that I might not have had a brother if my dad had reacted just slightly slower. We only stayed in Portugal for a few months after that,